So for those of you that don't know of Predictive Index, it is an assessment tool like no other. So before we get into how we first met and that legendary opening comment that you made to me, let's start by sharing with the audience what Predictive Index is and how it benefits our franchisors and businesses alike.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Predictive Index is basically, it's a suite of tools. The one we're going to talk about is the Predictive Index Behavioral Assessment, but everyone calls it PI, much to PI's annoyance at the time. So the behavioral assessment is a heavily researched and very valid tool that helps us understand what makes people tick. It literally just helps us understand this is who you are, this is how you like to work, this is what motivates you, this is what doesn't motivate you. And it helps us look under the hood of someone. And for me, it was such a huge aha moment. Without wanting to jump ahead too far, I'm all about data. Mm-hmm. So my team will tell you that I drive them insane. I'm a huge fan of Deming, and I quote him all the time to people. So one of my favorite ones is, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. But it's true. And as a business owner, the aha moment I had around PI was I had data on everything. I had data on my sales, I had data on my financials, I had data on everything, other than the most critical part of my business.
People.
Exactly.
Mm.
And, once again, it's a very old saying, but all business problems are people problems. But 9 times out of 10, they are. And so for franchisors and for franchisees, it's about people. You can have the greatest processes in the world, but you don't have the correct people carrying them out. It really doesn't matter. So the Predictive Index Behavioral Assessment, very simple tool, takes about 6 minutes. Take it online, take it on your computer, take it on your iPhone, whatever. Available in over 70 languages across the globe, because we truly are a global company. And it measures 4 basic drives.
Okay.
Measures dominance, which is that drive to assert yourself on other people, on that, how decisive you are, how confident a person you are in taking things on. And everyone has an amount of each of these drives.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have a small amount of dominance, so they're very collaborative, great team players. And others, such as maybe you and I, Frank, have a lot of dominance and we want to leave our thumbprint on things and take control of the situations. But understanding that helps us understand where people fit, but also how we can work together better.
Right.
And then we also measure what we call extroversion, which is that need for social interaction, that comfort level with interpersonal interactions. Do I like to talk everything out, or am I actually happier being left alone to think things through? And then we also measure patience, which is that drive for change and consistency. And some of us have very little of that drive, so we're happy with lots of variety, and other people prefer things to be the same day in, day out. And then the 4th drive we measure is formality, which is that need for rules and structure. Am I someone who doesn't have much need for rules and structure? Or do I like to have process? So by understanding that really helps us understand what makes someone tick, and then what behaviours we can expect to see from at work, which is why it's called the Predictive Index. We literally can predict how someone will show up at work.
Right. And I think what's interesting is, though, share with the audience too, how, you mentioned it takes 6 minutes, but how many questions is it?
2.
Okay.
I know, it freaks people out.
It does.
It is basically a stimulus response instrument. So without diving into the science side, because the IO psychologists up at Predictive Index Corporate would throw a fit if I tried to. But basically, it's asking you 2 questions, and it's asking you to check some words. So, I see the word competitive, and I check that because I'm highly competitive. And my wife will not let me play board games with children because it gets embarrassing. I have to win. So I check the word competitive, and that actually relates to the dominance factor. So there's a list of words, 86 words. You check those that you think apply to you. You don't check those that you don't think apply to you.
Or you even know what the word means.
Well, there is that as well. So that's another reason why we have it in 70 different languages. So, we encourage people to take it in their native tongue. And from that, the magic happens. But yeah, on the surface, it's a very simple tool, but it's backed up with, nearly 70 years worth of hard science, huge amount of 350 plus validity studies out there around this. So it is a scientifically valid tool that you can use. The assessment industry has gone crazy over the last few years, and you can go on Facebook and see what kind of Disney princess you smell like, and You know, what kind of donut am I? And you know, all these other crazy things. And they're fun, don't get me wrong. But the predictive index is a business tool. You know, it is a legally and scientifically valid tool you can use to hire people. So on the surface, it seems very easy. Well, 2 questions.
Right.
But the data it gives you is huge. And that's really, you know, being the data geek that I am, that's why I fell in love with it. Because, so as I say, you know, I've got data on everything other than the critical things. There's a lovely quote from one of Predictive Index's customers, a wonderful video. And the CEO of this organization says, we have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of inventory sitting in our warehouses, but our most important asset walks out the door at 5 o'clock each day.
Why Predictive Index made such a huge difference in the growth of my company is that a couple things. One, I realized when I used to interview people and I didn't have this tool, looking back, I think that I end up hiring people that A, I liked a lot, and B, I would hire people that had a lot of charisma. And then after I hired them, I realized they were just on their best behavior.
Getting that dive beneath the surface, getting that data is huge. Because, yeah, we all have biases. You know, I'm the same. I remember hiring a marketing director for an organisation I was running years back, you know, and he walked in and I just really liked the guy, you know. He liked golden retrievers. I had a golden retriever. He liked soccer. You know, we basically talked about soccer for about 2 hours and really liked the guy. Hired him and he was a disaster. You know, 90 days later, I'm looking at him thinking, why did I do that? But we all tend to do that. You know, we like people who are like us. That's human nature. We're going to do that. But the beauty of the predictive index, it tells us who the person really is, not the person who showed up at the interview on his best behavior.
Which everybody that shows up on an interview, I think the line is, this is as good as it's ever going to get on the interview, right?
Exactly. And also, and this is particularly important for franchisors as they grow their organization, but really any business, do you actually want to hire more of you? Because that might not be what you need, you know, and so, yeah, our tendency is I'm going to hire people I like or people who are very charismatic, but that may not be what I need for a bookkeeper. I probably don't want someone like me to be a bookkeeper, to be brutally honest. You know, I want someone who's going to be detail orientated and who's happy heads down doing that work.
Tell us what does Predictive Index not do?
Lots of things. It doesn't measure skills. It doesn't measure knowledge. It doesn't measure experience. It's a conversation I have quite often with clients out there. It's great to understand what motivates someone and makes them tick, but knowledge and experience is important as well. And certainly skills. A really good example, we work with an awful lot of healthcare companies. Now, you can't be a nurse if you don't have the necessary qualifications. You may have the perfect behavioural for it, and the cognitive ability to do it, but you've got to have those qualifications. So, you know, we don't measure skills, knowledge and experience. But in many ways, that's what the resume is for. And we measure stuff that isn't shown on the resume. The resume will tell me you have a degree from XYZ college.
If I can quote you, if I've got this quote right, I think you used to say a resume will tell you what you could do, and your PI will tell you how you behave. Do I have that right?
Pretty close, yeah.
Close.
Yeah. Well, that's a saying I haven't used in a few years. Yeah. My resume will tell me what you can do. Your PI will tell me what you will do.
Oh, that's right. What you will do. That's right. That really grabbed me when you told me that for the first time. That's right. Wow. Now that is super strong. I think also what I've come to tell people is that what PI did for my company in hiring people or taking on a franchisee, it didn't necessarily tell me whether they were the right franchisee or right employee, but it told me if they were the wrong one, which that's kind of an unfair advantage that you have. I mean, such an edge. If you can just eliminate the people that are not going to be a right fit from a behavioral assessment, that's huge, isn't it?
Yeah. And once again, this goes across all industries. On that. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that, technically, you and I could probably do most jobs out there. You know, I'd like to think someone could train me to be, a lab tech or whatever. But I would be a disaster at anything like that. I just would. So, yeah, if I can stop organisations, and particularly growing organisations, making one bad hire, we've helped their business. And I think in small companies, that's even more critical. I often joke about this. It's like, we've got clients with 70,000 plus employees. Great. They make a bad hire.
Mm-hmm.
So what? But if you're a team of 5 and you make a bad hire.
Oh, that's devastating.
Yeah. I mean, years back, I did a startup company doing medical supplies back in the UK many years back. And we, literally grew from me doing everything, and a team. And I got to the stage where I knew I needed an office manager. And this is before I'd met Predictive Index, and made the mistake of hiring someone who came from a big company. And we were small, very agile. Everyone did, you did what you've got to do when you're a small growing business. And this lady said on day one, looked at me and said, well, who does the filing? And I'm like, whoever's standing closest to the filing cabinet.
Including myself.
Yeah, exactly. And she just wasn't a match.
Right.
On that. So yeah, if I can stop a particularly growing company making one bad hire, my work here is done.
Right. Let's go back and talk about the origin of Predictive Index. I didn't know about this until recently when I knew you were going to be on the show. I was like, I got to learn about PI. I was fascinated. So I understand this goes all the way back to really World War II, 1942, a 26-year-old Arnold Daniels who volunteered for the U.S. Army Corps. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Arnold Daniels and what he did and why it was so fascinating and what he created?
Yeah, it's a really cool story. As I say, there's so many assessments coming on the marketplace now, and we're very much one of the old men of the industry on that. So, Arnold was shipped off to England, and a lieutenant, and flew over 30 missions over Europe. And the commanders looked at his team record and were like, why are these guys successful and other people aren't?
Mm.
They're all flying the same plane. They've all been through the same training. Why are his team smashing it?
And no casualties either.
No, zero casualty. I mean, just every metric they were measured on, they were blown out of the water. So they sat down and started to really analyse them. They brought in a psychologist to work with them. And that's really when Arnold was first introduced to psychometric testing. Mm. And he fell in love with it and realised that this had implications way, way beyond the military. This was all about solving business problems. This was, coming back to that, all business problems are people problems. Well, it really is. So, he went off to Boston. The military paid for him to go to Harvard. And in 1952, he released the very original Predictive Index assessment. What we now call the behavioural assessment. And then in 1955, he founded what was then PI Worldwide. And now over the years, obviously it's grown, hundreds of validity studies done across the globe. I think we're about 42 million plus behavioural assessments we've done now. So yeah, we've been around a bit. We've got some data to back us up on that. So we've really grown into this global company. And it's wonderful. I was on a call yesterday, actually, with one of the big Predictive Index partners over in Europe. Mm-hmm. And they were telling me, once again, household names, IKEA, companies worldwide across the globe. You use these tools because your people are so critical to your business.
Right. Yeah, I understand. The use of PI goes way above and beyond franchising. And there's, professional sports teams and huge Fortune 500 companies. And, we can't talk about them because of NDAs, and that's fine. But I think it's fascinating that this goes far above and beyond, franchising, of course, that people realize that this is a incredibly powerful tool, that you don't have to go at it alone when it comes to, hiring, recruiting, and really retaining people long-term.
Yeah. I mean, retention at the moment is massive for organizations.
Mm-hmm.
People want to hold on to their best people. Why wouldn't you? Right. On that? So people often ask us what kind of company uses, Predictive Index. Mm-hmm. And my glib answer is always a company where the people are important. And they look at you like, what? And I'm like, oh, but think about it.
Right.
It's true. You can have the most beautiful restaurant, but if the staff aren't any good, it's not going to work. You can have a gorgeous hotel, but it doesn't work. So I don't care what kind of organization you are. The quality of your people are what differentiate you from the competition. Right. I had a lovely conversation with one of our clients recently, and they're a big beer distributor, and was sitting talking to their senior management team. And the CEO said to me, he said, look, the Heineken we sell is no different to the Heineken the other distributors sell. Mm-hmm. The difference is the quality of our people.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.